Behind every grand Hollywood estate lies a story more shocking than anything on screen. Today, we're unlocking legendary homes where Hollywood royalty lived, loved, and sometimes met their doom. These aren't just mansions. They're time capsules of scandal, fame, and forbidden stories the studios tried to bury. High above Hollywood, swashbuckling bad boy Errol Flynn built more than just a home. He created his own playground for Hollywood's most depraved parties. Flynn, the man who brought Captain Blood and Robin Hood to life, installed secret peepholes throughout Mulholland Farm. The star deliberately created hidden observation points behind bedroom walls where he could watch his guests in their most private moments. Hidden passageways connected rooms like something straight out of his pirate films. One moment you'd be in Flynn's study, then with the press of a hidden button, a bookcase would swing open, revealing a secret corridor to the master bedroom. The swimming pool, site of infamous midnight skinny dipping, was reportedly designed with underwater windows connecting to a hidden basement viewing room. Flynn's legendary poker games attracted A-list producers, stars, and even mobsters. But Flynn's demons caught up with him. Legal troubles, including disturbing allegations about underage girls, multiple statutory rape trials, and crushing debt, finally forced him to sell his voyeuristic playground. He died broke at 50. His reputation in tatters. Today, little remains of the original estate, but locals swear you can still hear echoes of those debauched parties on quiet nights, the last gasps of Hollywood's most notorious playboy. While Flynn embraced depravity, Judy Garland was desperately seeking escape.
Well, I guess it is for most performers.
I don't want to be there all the time.
Of course not.
You know, but because I like to be with my children sometimes. Most of the time, as a matter of fact. But I do like being in front of audiences.
Her rustic canyon cottage wasn't just a home, it was a fortress against the studio system that was slowly killing her. Tucked away among towering eucalyptus trees, this modest hideaway tells a heartbreaking story. MGM executives had Garland on a brutal regimen of amphetamines to keep her working and barbiturates to help her sleep. By age 16, she was already trapped in the cycle that would eventually take her life. The cottage walls were specially soundproofed, not just for her singing, but to muffle her sobs during devastating breakdowns. Friends who visited described walking into rooms where pill bottles were hastily swept into drawers. In a particularly haunting detail, Garland installed a second phone line that bypassed the studio-monitored main number. It was her only way to speak freely without MGM spies listening in. Her rare dinner parties here revealed the true Judy, brilliant, funny, and desperate for genuine connection. Liza Minnelli later revealed that some of her earliest memories were of her mother singing in this small living room, her transcendent voice filling the space with a joy she rarely felt herself. Neighbors still claim that on certain nights, usually around 3 a.m., the ghostly sound of Garland's voice can be heard drifting through the canyon, the lonely echo of a star who never found the peace she so desperately sought. From heartbreak to staggering opulence, silent film genius Harold Lloyd built what many consider the most extravagant estate in Beverly Hills history. Lloyd, the daredevil comedian who famously dangled from clock towers and skyscrapers, poured his fortune into a 44-room Italian Renaissance palace nicknamed Green Acres. The 15-acre property cost an astronomical $2 million in 1920s dollars. That's over $30 million today. The estate featured things that seem impossible: a full-size 9-hole golf course, Olympic swimming pool, 900-foot canoe stream, and 50 phone lines connecting every corner of the property. Lloyd's bathroom alone was larger than most Hollywood apartments. But the eeriest feature? A hidden vault where Lloyd stored his collection of 300,000 stereoscopic nude photographs, an obsession he kept secret from everyone but his closest friends. After parties, he'd invite select male guests to view these 3D images through special viewers, giggling like schoolboys well into the morning hours. Lloyd's star faded when talkies arrived, but he refused to downsize, even as his fortune dwindled. He fired servants one by one, eventually wandering alone through rooms filled with dusty furniture as unpaid tax bills piled up. In his final years, Lloyd was spotted giving impromptu tours to strangers who wandered onto the property, desperately reliving his glory days for anyone who would listen. His final indignity? Selling off his beloved possessions piece by piece, just to keep the lights on in his crumbling paradise. If walls could talk, Jean Harlow's Beverly Hills mansion would scream. In 1932, Harlow's husband of 2 months, MGM executive Paul Byrne, was found naked in their bathroom with a bullet in his head. A note nearby read, "Last night was only a comedy." Those cryptic words launched a century of speculation. Was it really a tragic ending? Or did MGM stage the scene to cover up something more sinister? Studio fixers arrived hours before police. Rumors swirled that mob connections, sexual inadequacy, or Harlow herself might have played a role. The truth died with Byrne, and possibly with Harlow herself just 5 years later, when she succumbed to kidney failure at 26. The house on Palm Drive gained an instant reputation for being cursed. Subsequent owners reported chilling phenomena, doors slamming shut at precisely 2:45 a.m., the estimated time of Byrne's death. Others described waking to the overwhelming scent of Harlow's signature gardenia perfume and seeing a platinum-haired figure at the foot of their bed. Most disturbing were reports from multiple owners about bloodstains mysteriously reappearing on the bathroom floor where Byrne died, no matter how many times the tiles were replaced. One family fled in the middle of the night in 1963, leaving all their possessions behind. They refused to explain why, only saying, "No one should live in that house. What's in there isn't natural." The mansion has been renovated multiple times, yet paranormal investigators still rank it among America's most haunted homes. Some things, it seems, can't be remodeled away. After the haunted darkness of Harlow's mansion, Clark Gable and Carole Lombard's Encino Ranch represent something rare in Hollywood: genuine love. Hollywood's ultimate power couple rejected Beverly Hills glamour for 20 acres of working ranch land. The King of Hollywood traded tuxedos for flannel shirts, while screwball comedy queen Lombard chased chickens through the yard in dungarees. Their modest farmhouse became legendary for what it lacked: no servants' quarters, no screening room, no tennis courts. Instead, they installed stables where they'd spend mornings riding together before dawn. Gable built a workshop where he repaired farm equipment with his own hands, while Lombard cultivated heirloom vegetables they'd serve to stunned dinner guests. Friends described these meals as revelatory: Hollywood royalty serving food they'd grown themselves on mismatched plates, laughing uproariously at inside jokes. Lombard's famous pranks often targeted Gable himself, once replacing his work boots with identical ones, a half size too small, watching him grow increasingly confused as his feet mysteriously hurt. Then came January 16th, 1942, the day everything shattered.
And Judy, I need to know what the situation is in every house today and every dollar that's fair.
Lombard boarded a plane after selling war bonds. It crashed into a mountain, killing everyone aboard. Gable, who had begged her not to fly, raced to the crash site and had to be physically restrained from climbing the mountain to find her. He enlisted in the Army Air Corps weeks later, telling friends he hoped German gunners would finish what grief had started. Though he returned and even remarried, caretakers reported hearing him speaking to Lombard in the empty house late at night. The ranch was subdivided after Gable's death, but the small caretaker's cottage still stands. While Gable and Lombard embraced simplicity, John Barrymore, considered the greatest Hamlet of his generation, created a home as dramatic and tortured as his performances.
Is the tooth of a hen dinosaur.
Oh, yes.
He says that the most conservative estimate, it is 10 million years old.
Bella Vista clung to a Beverly Hills hillside like a European castle transported to California. Inside, Barrymore created spaces as theatrical as they were impractical. Barrymore's decor reflected his unhinged genius. Genuine medieval suits of armor stood guard in hallways. A human skeleton he named Cleo sat in a chair in his study, reportedly the remains of a woman he'd been infatuated with in life. Most disturbing was his trophy room, filled with animal heads and erotic art that shocked even his Hollywood friends. As Barrymore's alcoholism worsened, Bella Vista deteriorated into something resembling a haunted house. Visitors described navigating past broken furniture, emptied liquor bottles, and the occasional wild animal Barrymore had adopted and forgotten about. In his final years, he'd frequently disturbed neighbors by standing on his balcony at 3 a.m., performing Macbeth monologues at full volume. completely naked except for a sword. After Barrymore's death in 1942, something strange occurred. During his funeral, while his body was on display at the mortuary, prankster friends including Errol Flynn and W.C. Fields allegedly borrowed his corpse for one final party, propping him up at his favorite bar stool at the Cock and Bull pub on Sunset Boulevard. Though likely apocryphal, the story perfectly captures Barrymore's wild spirit, a man whose home, like his life, was grand, chaotic, and utterly unforgettable. If Barrymore's home was theatrical, Tony Duquette's Dawn Ridge was from another dimension entirely. Hollywood's most flamboyant set designer created a home so outrageous, so visually overwhelming, that first-time visitors often needed a moment to adjust their senses. Imagine walking through a door into what appears to be an emerald green jungle. 20-foot artificial trees with jeweled leaves tower overhead. The ceiling, completely covered in abalone shells that shimmer like otherworldly stars. Underfoot, floors inlaid with crushed turquoise and coral create patterns that seem to move as you walk. Every surface at Dawn Ridge competed for attention. Tables made from sliced geodes, chairs upholstered in Chinese wedding blankets, doorknobs fashioned from ancient Buddhist prayer beads. Duquette didn't just blur the line between home and art installation, he obliterated it. His legendary parties transformed the already hallucinatory space into something even more extreme. For one event, he filled the swimming pool with orchids and floating candles, then hired synchronized swimmers wearing costumes made entirely of peacock feathers to perform, while Elizabeth Taylor and Marlene Dietrich watched from custom thrones. But behind the extravagance lay tragedy. In 1998, a devastating fire destroyed Duquette's primary house and most of his collections. Instead of rebuilding conventionally, the 80-year-old designer created something even more fantastical from the ashes, incorporating burnt remnants into new sculptures and wall treatments. Today, Dawn Ridge remains largely intact, a monument to imagination without limits, and a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary Hollywood stories aren't on any film reel, but built into the very walls around us. While Duquette created visual chaos, Walt Disney built miniature perfection. The most iconic entertainment mogul in history didn't just imagine magical kingdoms, he built one in his own backyard years before Disneyland existed. Disney's Holmby Hills estate featured something unprecedented, a fully functioning 1/8 scale railroad called the Carrollwood Pacific. This wasn't a toy. It was an engineering marvel that could carry adults on a journey through perfectly landscaped grounds. The half-mile track wound through tunnels, over trestles, and past miniature towns Walt built himself. His custom locomotive, the Lily Bell, named for his wife, pulled cars large enough for adults to straddle while Walt played conductor, complete with authentic railroad cap and overalls. What few people know is that this backyard railroad directly birthed Disneyland. Walt would often sketch ride concepts while watching visitors enjoy his miniature wonderland. Imagineers confirmed that Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, Casey Jr. Circus Train, and even the original concept for the Matterhorn all began as scribbles made during these backyard sessions. The home's basement housed the Laughing Place, a workshop where Walt personally built miniature furniture, landscapes, and characters. It was here, surrounded by tiny creations, that he first articulated his vision for audio animatronic figures that would revolutionize entertainment, a heartbreaking detail. In his final months battling cancer, Walt reportedly asked to be carried to a chair beside his beloved railroad, where he'd sit for hours, watching the empty train circle, lost in thoughts of worlds he wouldn't live to create. After Disney's death in 1966, the railroad was dismantled, but parts were incorporated into Disneyland, where they continue delighting visitors who have no idea they're experiencing fragments of Walt's personal playground. The most mysterious home on our list might be based on Hollywood's greatest trick, a mansion famous for an owner who likely never lived there. The so-called Houdini estate in Laurel Canyon has captivated ghost hunters and history buffs for decades. With its hidden tunnels, subterranean pools, and stone staircases leading nowhere, it certainly looks like somewhere the world's greatest escape artist might have lived. But here's the shocking truth. Historical records suggest Houdini never owned or even stayed at the property. So how did this mansion become permanently associated with him? The most likely explanation involves Houdini's widow, Bess, who reportedly rented a smaller house nearby in the 1930s. Over decades, local stories conflated this fact with the more impressive estate, creating a myth that grew with each retelling. The property's genuinely strange features, including underground passages and a deep water tank, were actually built by Ralph Walker, a wealthy businessman with his own eccentric interests. Yet the Houdini connection persists, fueled by ghost stories and unexplained phenomena. Multiple owners report hearing chains rattling in empty rooms. Others describe watching candles light themselves during seances. Most disturbing are accounts of visitors feeling invisible hands grabbing their ankles near the large water tank, supposedly Houdini's drowned spirit still practicing escape techniques. A devastating 1959 fire destroyed much of the original mansion, leaving haunting ruins that only enhanced its spooky reputation. Recent restoration preserved many original elements while rebuilding others, creating an architectural time capsule that's now a popular filming location. The estate's greatest trick, becoming permanently linked to a legendary figure who never lived there, proof that in Hollywood, a good story always trumps historical fact. From illusion to genuine star power, Elizabeth Taylor's Bel Air estate reveals the private world of Hollywood's most photographed woman.
Emotional lessons. I don't believe in regrets because I'm here today. I'm alive. I have my friends, I have my children, and I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. No one does.
Taylor purchased this modernist sanctuary in 1981 after decades of living in fishbowl scrutiny through 8 marriages and countless health crises. The property represented something she rarely experienced: control over her own environment. Unlike the ostentatious mansions of her past, this home embraced understated luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased breathtaking garden views while keeping paparazzi at bay. The property's most striking feature was its ingenious security system, lush landscaping strategically positioned to block telephoto lenses, while still allowing Taylor to enjoy her gardens. Inside, the decor reflected Taylor's true personality, not her public persona. Friends described their surprise at finding comfortable sofas instead of formal furniture, walls filled with impressionist paintings rather than photos of her famous self, and a remarkable absence of mirrors for a woman known for her beauty. The heart of the home was Taylor's legendary jewelry vault, a climate-controlled room with bank-level security that housed gems worth over $150 million. But visitors noted she rarely wore these treasures at home, preferring to pad around in caftan loungewear with bare feet and minimal makeup. Taylor's personal sanctuary included a special medical room where she could receive treatments for her numerous health conditions without hospitalization. This space, with its hospital-grade equipment disguised by home-like furnishings, reflected her determination to maintain dignity even through physical suffering. Most revealing was her custom screening room, where Taylor hosted intimate gatherings to watch old films. But contrary to expectation, she rarely screened her own movies, instead showing classics from peers she admired. Friends recalled her crying openly during Greta Garbo films, whispering, "That's what real acting looks like." In this home, Elizabeth Taylor finally found what her fame had always denied her. Not luxury, which she'd always had, but something far more precious: normalcy. No Hollywood home became more synonymous with scandal than Turner's Woodland Drive residence.
Did not dig behind the facade
Which
to learn what they were really like until the wedding ring was on, the papers were signed, and then I was in mucho trouble.
Turner, the sweater girl, who rocketed to fame for her curves before proving her dramatic talent in films like The Postman Always Rings Twice, lived a life that replicated the noir films she starred in. Her relationship with gangster Johnny Stompanato, enforcer for mob boss Mickey Cohen, brought violence directly into her elegant Beverly Hills home. Neighbors reported hearing explosive arguments, shattering glass, and Turner's terrified screams in the months leading up to April 4th, 1958. That night, what began as another violent argument ended with Stompanato dead on Turner's bedroom floor, stabbed with a kitchen knife. The killer, Turner's 14-year-old daughter Cheryl, who claimed she was protecting her mother from Stompanato's brutal beating. What followed became one of Hollywood's most sensational trials, with Turner delivering the performance of her lifetime on the witness stand. Sobbing in a tailored gray suit, she described years of abuse while carefully omitting rumors that she'd actually been holding the knife and allowed her daughter to take the blame. The coroner's jury ruled it justifiable homicide, but questions lingered. Why did Cheryl go to the kitchen for a knife instead of calling police? Why did Turner's makeup remain perfect despite the alleged beating? Why did Mickey Cohen receive certain personal items from the scene before police arrived? Turner sold the house within months, but never escaped its shadow. The address became so notorious that even today, real estate listings avoid mentioning its history, proof that some Hollywood scandals never fade. After Turner's House of Horrors, Fred Astaire's Beverly Hills residence offers something revolutionary in its simplicity, a home designed entirely around a singular artistic obsession. From the outside, Astaire's colonial-style mansion looked conventionally elegant. Step inside, however, and you entered what colleagues called the Dance Laboratory, a space engineered specifically for the creation of cinematic magic. The home's centerpiece wasn't a living room, but a 60 by 40-foot rehearsal studio with sprung hardwood floors identical to RKO sound stages, floor-to-ceiling mirrors lined walls at precise angles, calculated to show Astaire every movement from multiple perspectives simultaneously. An innovation decades ahead of its time, Astaire installed film equipment that allowed him to record practice sessions, then immediately review them on a projection screen. This technology, custom-built at enormous expense, let him analyze every step with scientific precision. The home's most unusual feature was its tap room, a small studio with different floor surfaces, wood, marble, linoleum, concrete, where Astaire would test how various shoes and materials created distinct sounds. Neighbors recalled the hypnotic rhythm of tap shoes at odd hours, sometimes continuing until dawn, as Astaire relentlessly pursued perfection. While other stars collected art or antiques, Astaire's prized possessions were more unusual. Over 200 pairs of custom dance shoes, organized chronologically by film, each with detailed notes about their specific performance characteristics. He referred to this collection as his autobiography in leather. Despite his wealth and fame, Astaire lived modestly in small private quarters adjacent to the massive studio spaces. Friends described finding him asleep on studio couches, surrounded by notation papers detailing new choreography, too exhausted from rehearsal to make it to his actual bedroom. Today, dance education programs make pilgrimages to the property, which has been preserved largely as Astaire left it, a rare example of a Hollywood home that represents not glamour or excess, but relentless artistic dedication. These weren't just houses, they were confessionals, fortresses, prisons, and occasionally crime scenes. What connects them isn't marble countertops or infinity pools, but the haunting sense that fame extracts a brutal price from those who achieve it. Behind these walls, screen legends sought what their celebrity constantly denied them. These properties have changed hands countless times, been renovated, demolished, and rebuilt. Yet something intangible remains, an emotional residue that transcends physical spaces. As Oscar Wilde wrote, "Some things are more precious because they don't last long." Perhaps the same is true of these legendary homes and the complicated icons who moved through them. What Hollywood home story fascinated you most? The hidden peepholes in Flynn's voyeuristic playground? The cursed mansion where Jean Harlow's husband died? Or perhaps Walt Disney's backyard railroad that birthed an entertainment empire? Share your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this journey through Tinseltown's shadows and secrets, smash that subscribe button for more expeditions into Hollywood's golden age, where the truth is always stranger than the fiction it created. Until next time, remember, in Hollywood, what happens behind closed doors always finds its way into the light, eventually.